You talked a lot about local control.
Right.
Do you believe that the state should be setting the standards for curriculum and those tests, or do you think that should be on an individual level by school district?
Well, it depends on, I think by and large, you've got a core curriculum, which I think everybody can agree on, and the local, I visited with a lot of the local superintendents and educators, as well as people in business and industry. I think you have a core curriculum. For example, I believe, this is my personal belief, I think everybody should have 2 maths, Algebra 1 and geometry, or an alternative to geometry if they wanted something else. 2 sciences, U.S. history, world history, English for all 4 years, and then, you know, perhaps a fine art and one language. But there needs to be much more flexibility after that, and so local districts would have the ability to, you know, design courses, for example, career and technical education courses, where there is a demand and a real need in certain areas. They would have the flexibility to do that, more flexibility to do that. So I would say I would lessen state control over education, move back towards more local control, but there needs to be complete transparency on financial matters, on matters of how the students are doing on the vocational and technical front, as well as the ACT front.
I think we're nearing the end of our time.
Okay.
Can we do, if someone has one more quick question?
Just real quick, and you've opened the door to so many things, and as far as education, veterans, for instance, they're talking about having them certified. They get trained intensively on various trades, and they come out with no certification and whatnot, and that's a whole different issue.
We're addressing that, Mike. What we're doing, and it's a college credit program where you take that experience, and up at Central Texas College, they have a data bank. And so those who have that experience, they can take it and provide that and get credit at community college or even some 4-year institutions for the training they received in the military, so they don't have to go back to square one. That was one of the things I heard of when I first came in and was concerned about. But that's a good bipartisan effort. Senator Van de Putte on the Democratic side and Republicans have worked together on making that feasible, and I think Texas probably leads the way on that front in terms of getting credit to returning veterans.
Excellent. Yeah, you know, going back to, I went in the Navy, and they sit you down and put you through what they call a basic battery. And I'm sure and they come out of there and they put you into a slot because they know where you're going. And my ignorance about our own schools, do we even do that sort of thing?
Well, here, that's in other words, you have, the military assesses where your talents are and tends to move you in that direction, although sometimes I was trained, I was an oxymoron Army intelligence officer. I get to Vietnam and they just grabbing bodies, so sometimes it doesn't necessarily, you don't get the job that comports with what you were trained to do. But having said that, that basic assessment, the problem is there's some silly federal court decision out there which doesn't allow business and industry to do something like the basic assessment skills, and we've got to work around that because that's a great thing. Some of the schools are doing that, but that's very helpful to young people to be able to know, hey, here's what my talents and interests are, because, you know, quite frankly, I was with a state representative yesterday, and he you know, like me, had a tough time with sciences. I'm glad I didn't have to take 4 sciences as you have to take in Texas. I took 2. But it wasn't something that motivated me or interested me. Even though my dad was an engineer, a very good engineer, I had different interests and different talent. But as he said, you've got to be able to assess where kids are and recognize their different talents and let them find their way, if you will. And I think the basic assessment approach that the military uses is very useful. Could be
just one final thing, because I'm seeing so much about charter schools, and I've been involved with charter schools on the governing council, homeschooling and private schools and school vouchers. How I mean, that's a big chunk, but how does, and I'll play one more piece of it. I worked for Texas Association of School Boards for a while, and I stood in a meeting where a lady stood up and said, well, you know, our country was founded on public schools. And I went, oh, really? So we have this anomaly where we have a force out there that doesn't believe in homeschool or charters, and they're working very hard against them. But what I'm saying is that we have some very intelligent, well-educated children coming out of homeschool.
Absolutely.
And so
I think the homeschool movement is protected by law. They're not going to mess with that. And charters, you've got good ones and you've got questionable ones. Let's be frank. I mean, there's some problems out there. I've focused my attention this session on trying to fix since most of the kids go to public schools, trying to fix this crazy education policy that we have in our state.
Yeah.
Thank you.